The stars looked peaceful through the bridge windows of the Harmony's Dream. Captain Sarah Chen stretched in her command chair, watching the blue glow of hyperspace fade as her ship dropped back into normal space. After 3 days of travel, they had finally reached the Kepler station system. "Jump complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Jake Morrison from the navigation console. "All systems green." "We're right on target." Sarah smiled and nodded. This was exactly the kind of mission she loved. The cargo hold was packed with medical supplies, food packages, and school materials for the frontier colonies. No weapons, no military gear, just things to help people live better lives. The Harmony's Dream wore bright white paint with red crosses clearly marked on her hull. Anyone who saw them would know they were civilians carrying aid supplies. "Good work, Jake. Signal Kepler Station and let them know we're here," Sarah said. She turned to her communications officer. "Amy, send them our cargo manifest. They'll want to know what supplies we brought." Amy Rodriguez worked at her console, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Signal sent, Captain. Kepler Station should receive it in about 10 minutes. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew. 12 good people who had signed up to help others, not to fight wars. Most of them were young, fresh from the Merchant Marine Academy. They believed in making the galaxy a better place, one delivery at a time. Sarah was proud to be their captain. The ship's doctor, Marcus Webb, walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee. "Captain, I've been checking the medical supplies in cargo bay too. Everything looks perfect. The children on those frontier worlds are going to have vaccines they've been waiting months for." "That's exactly what I like to hear, Doc," Sarah replied. She had been making supply runs like this for 8 years. Every successful delivery meant families would have what they needed to survive on the dangerous frontier worlds. Jake looked up from his console with a confused expression. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings on sensors. There's something out there, but I can't get a clear picture." Sarah frowned and moved to look at his screen. The sensor display showed empty space around them, but Jake was right. Something felt wrong. The readings kept flickering like something was interfering with their sensors. "Could be solar interference," suggested Amy from her station. "This system has an unstable star." Before Sarah could respond, the space around them seemed to ripple and twist. 3 sleek ships appeared from nowhere, their dark hulls reflecting the distant starlight. Sarah's blood turned cold as she recognized the sharp, predatory design. "Vorthak Raiders," she whispered. The alien ships moved with deadly grace, forming a triangle around the Harmony's Dream. Each raider was twice the size of Sarah's cargo vessel, armed with weapons that could punch through their hull like paper. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as pirates who showed no mercy to anyone they caught. "Red alert," Sarah shouted, hitting the emergency alarm. "All hands to emergency stations." The bridge filled with flashing red light and the wail of sirens. Sarah's crew moved quickly to their positions, but she could see the fear in their eyes. They were merchants, not fighters. The Harmony's Dream had only basic shields and no weapons at all. "Amy, get on the emergency frequency," Sarah ordered. "Send a distress signal to anyone who can hear us." Amy's hands shook as she worked. "Emergency signal transmitting, Captain. But we're far from any military ships. Help won't arrive for hours." The largest Vorthak raider opened fire without warning. Bright green energy beams slammed into the Harmony's Dream's shields, making the whole ship shake violently. Sarah grabbed her chair to keep from falling as sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Shields down to 60%, Jake reported, his voice tight with fear. Sarah activated the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Harmony's Dream. We are a civilian ship carrying medical supplies and humanitarian aid. We are not armed and pose no threat to you." The only answer was another barrage of weapons fire. The Vorthak didn't care that they were civilians. They didn't care about the red crosses painted on the hull, or the medical supplies in the cargo hold. All they saw was easy prey, shields failing. Jake shouted over the noise of alarms and explosions. Sarah made the hardest decision of her life. "All crew to escape pods. Abandon ship immediately." Her crew looked at her with wide eyes. They had trained for this moment, but no one ever expected to actually use those skills. Sarah pushed them toward the emergency exits. "Move. Everyone to the escape pods now." The crew ran through the corridors as their ship continued to shake under enemy fire. Sarah helped the younger crew members into the small escape pods, making sure everyone had emergency suits and survival equipment. "Captain, you need to get in a pod." Dr. Webb shouted over the noise. "I'm right behind you," Sarah replied, pushing him toward the last pod. She ran back to the bridge one final time, her hands flying over the controls. If she was going to lose her ship, she would at least make sure the distress signal kept transmitting. The escape pods launched just as the Harmony's Dream's main power failed. Sarah watched through the small window of her pod as her beautiful ship drifted helpless in space, smoke pouring from dozens of holes in her hull. Maybe the Vorthak would just take the cargo and leave them alone. Maybe they would be rescued and live to tell this story. Sarah held on to that hope as she watched the 3 raider ships close in on her crew's escape pods. Then her hope died. The Vorthak raiders opened fire on the defenseless escape pods. One by one, the small craft exploded in brief flashes of light. Sarah screamed as she watched her friends die, but no sound could escape her pod's tiny cockpit. Jake Morrison, who loved astronomy and dreamed of exploring new worlds. Amy Rodriguez, who wrote letters to her little sister every week. Dr. Webb, who had saved hundreds of lives in his career, all of them murdered in cold blood by pirates who saw human life as worthless. Sarah's pod was the last to die. Through her window, she could see the lead Vorthak ship turning toward her, weapons charging. She thought about her crew, about the families waiting for medical supplies that would never arrive, about the children who would die without the vaccines in her cargo hold. With her last breath, Sarah Chen whispered a promise into the void. "Someone will make you pay for this." The green energy beam lit up space for just a moment, and then there was only silence among the stars. The Vorthak raiders began stripping the Harmony's Dream of her cargo, chattering to each other in their harsh language. To them, this was just another successful hunt. Humans were weak creatures who barely knew how to fight. They had no idea what fury they had just awakened. In the depths of space, the Harmony's Dream's emergency beacon continued its automated distress call, broadcasting the final moments of Captain Sarah Chen and her crew to anyone who might be listening. The message would travel for days before reaching human space, carrying with it proof of a massacre that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral Marcus Torres sat in his office on Terra Station, reading reports that made his stomach turn. 3 days had passed since the Harmony's Dream had missed her scheduled arrival at Kepler Station. The search and rescue teams had found her drift in space, torn apart by weapons fire, but it was the data from her emergency beacon that made Marcus clench his fists in rage. "Play it again," he told Commander Elena Vasquez, his intelligence officer. The holographic display showed the final moments of the merchant vessel. Marcus watched Captain Sarah Chen help her crew into escape pods, watched the Vorthak raiders systematically destroy each small craft, watched 12 innocent people die for no reason other than cruel sport. The cargo hold was completely stripped, Elena reported, her voice cold with anger. Medical supplies, food packages, school materials for the frontier colonies, all stolen. Marcus stood and walked to the large window overlooking the shipyards of Terra Station. Hundreds of vessels moved through the busy space lanes below, merchants and passenger ships going about their peaceful business. Most of them had no idea what had just happened in the Kepler system. "How many attacks is this now?" Marcus asked. Elena checked her data pad. "The Harmony's Dream makes 47 confirmed Vorthak attacks on human civilian vessels in the past 2 years. We estimate over 12,000 casualties, mostly merchants, colonists, and aid workers. 12,000 people." Marcus thought about each number representing someone's parent, child, or friend. 12,000 human beings murdered by pirates who saw them as easy targets. "What does Galactic Council intelligence say about Vorthak military capabilities?" Marcus asked. "Standard raider tactics," Elena replied. "Hit-and-run attacks using fast ships and cloaking technology. They avoid direct confrontation with military vessels. Intelligence estimates they have approximately 200 raider ships operating from hidden bases in the Outer Rim territories." Marcus turned from the window. "And what does the Council recommend we do about these attacks?" Elena's expression grew bitter. "File a formal complaint. Request mediation talks. Maybe impose some trade sanctions." She shook her head. "The Altarian ambassador actually suggested we simply avoid traveling through Vorthak territory. Avoid traveling through half the galaxy because pirates think humans are easy prey," Marcus said quietly. His voice was calm, but Elena could see the storm building behind his eyes. The door chimed and General Patricia Hayes entered, carrying a thick folder of documents. As head of fleet operations, Patricia had been coordinating with colony governments across human space. The news she brought was not good. "Marcus, we're getting reports of panic in the outer colonies," Patricia said without preamble. Merchant traffic has dropped by 60% in the past month. Colonists are running out of medical supplies and food. Some settlements are talking about abandoning their worlds entirely. Because they're afraid to travel, Marcus concluded. Can you blame them? The Vorthak have made it clear that civilian markings mean nothing to them. Medical ships, school transports, refugee vessels, they attack them all. Patricia dropped the folder on Marcus's desk. I've got requests from 17 colony governors asking for military escorts for every supply run. Marcus picked up the folder and flipped through reports from across human space. The same story repeated over and over. Fear, shortage, and growing desperation in the frontier worlds. The Vorthak raids weren't just killing people. They were slowly strangling human expansion into new systems. What about the other species? Marcus asked. Are the Vorthak attacking anyone else? Elena shook her head. Intelligence says no. They seem to be targeting only human vessels. The working theory is that we're still seen as newcomers to galactic politics. Many species consider us weak because we prefer diplomacy to warfare. Weak. Marcus repeated the word softly. He walked back to the window and looked down at the merchant ships loading supplies for colony worlds. Good people doing honest work, trying to make life better for families on distant planets. They shouldn't have to fear for their lives every time they left port. Marcus made his decision. Patricia, I want you to activate Operation Thunderbolt immediately. Both women stared at him in surprise. Operation Thunderbolt was the largest military mobilization plan in human history, designed for use only in case of full-scale war. Sir, are you sure? Patricia asked. That's every available warship in the human defense fleet. We're talking about pulling vessels from every system, leaving homeworlds with minimal protection. The Vorthak want to test human resolve, Marcus said, turning back to his officers. They think we're too soft to fight back properly. They believe we'll accept casualties and file complaints, while they continue murdering our people. He moved to his desk and activated the secure communication system that would reach every fleet command post across human space. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The screen filled with the faces of fleet commanders from dozens of systems. Admiral Chen from the Mars Defense Fleet, Captain Rodriguez commanding the Centauri patrol squadrons, Commander Singh from the Frontier Protection Force. All of them had lost friends and colleagues to Vorthak raids. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus began, as of this moment, the human defense fleet is at war with the Vorthak hegemony. The response was immediate. Every commander began speaking at once, asking for details, requesting orders, offering their full support. Marcus raised his hand for silence. The Vorthak have systematically murdered over 12,000 human civilians. They have attacked medical ships, refugee transports, and aid convoys. They have shown no mercy to our people, and they will receive none from us. Marcus activated a holographic star map showing Vorthak territory and known raider bases. Operation Thunderbolt will begin in 72 hours. Every available warship will converge on the outer rim. Our mission is simple. Find every Vorthak raider base, every supply depot, every military installation, and destroy them all. Admiral Chen leaned forward on her screen. What about prisoners, sir? Rules of engagement? Any Vorthak who surrenders will be taken into custody for war crimes trials, Marcus replied. But make this clear to every ship captain. We are not seeking a negotiated settlement. We are not interested in reparations or apologies. The Vorthak hegemony as a military force will cease to exist. The commanders exchanged glances. This was unlike any military action humanity had ever undertaken. Usually humans sought diplomatic solutions, tried to minimize casualties, looked for ways to end conflicts peacefully. Not this time. Sir, Captain Rodriguez asked carefully, what about the Galactic Council? They'll demand we stop and negotiate. Marcus's expression grew cold. The Council had 2 years to address Vorthak piracy. They chose to do nothing while our people died. Now they can watch while we solve the problem ourselves. He looked at each commander's face on the screen, seeing his own determination reflected in their eyes. 72 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Use that time to prepare your crews and organize supply lines. When we move into Vorthak space, we won't be coming home until the job is finished. The screens went dark as the commanders signed off to prepare their fleets. Marcus turned to Patricia and Elena, who were staring at him with a mixture of respect and concern. Marcus, Patricia said quietly, you realize what you're doing? This isn't a police action or a rescue mission. This is total war. Marcus walked to a display case on his office wall. Inside was a piece of hull plating from the first human colony ship, the vessel that had carried his great-grandmother to the stars 2 centuries ago. Beside it hung a medal awarded to his grandfather for evacuating civilians during the colonial wars. The Vorthak made a simple mistake, Marcus said, touching the glass case. They assumed that because we prefer peace, we can't wage war. They thought that because we value life, we won't take it when necessary. He turned back to his officers with fire in his eyes. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you murder human civilians. The Vorthak wanted to test our resolve. They're about to get their answer. The dreadnought Retribution led a fleet of 50 warships through the Outer Rim territories, hunting for Vorthak raiders. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge watching his tactical displays show the systematic search of every asteroid field and hidden base in 3 star systems. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the sensor station. "Vorthak signature, bearing 27 Mark IV. Marcus moved to the tactical display where Commander Elena Vasquez was analyzing the sensor data. Her intelligence division had spent weeks developing new tracking methods specifically designed to hunt down cloaked raider ships. "It's a small outpost built into an asteroid," Elena reported. "Quantum signature analysis shows at least 12 raider vessels docked inside, plus manufacturing facilities for weapons and cloaking devices." "Any civilian vessels or prisoners?" Marcus asked. Elena's expression darkened. "Negative on prisoners, sir. But I'm detecting debris from at least 6 different merchant ships in the surrounding area. Some of it looks recent." Marcus felt the familiar cold anger settle in his chest. More evidence of Vorthak brutality, more proof that these raiders saw human life as worthless. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to all ships in the fleet." The bridge filled with holographic displays showing the captains of dozens of human warships. These were experienced officers who had spent their careers protecting colony worlds and escort convoys. All of them had lost friends to Vorthak raiders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have located our first target," Marcus announced. "Standard procedure applies. We broadcast our message, wait exactly 60 seconds for surrender, then we eliminate the threat." The fleet moved into attack formation around the hidden asteroid base. Marcus activated the communication system and broadcast on all Vorthak frequencies. "This is Admiral Marcus Torres of the Human Defense Fleet. You are guilty of murdering civilian crews and attacking non-military vessels. You have 60 seconds to surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy your base." The response came in the form of 12 Vorthak raiders launching from the asteroid at maximum speed, their weapons already charging for battle. Marcus watched them on the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "They made their choice," he said quietly. "All ships, engage at will." The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. Human warships were built for fleet combat, not hit-and-run raids. The Vorthak ships that specialized in attacking helpless merchants found themselves hopelessly outgunned against military vessels designed for war. When the last raider exploded in a brilliant flash of light, Marcus gave his final order. "Target the asteroid base. Full bombardment." Dozens of energy beams and missile volleys struck the hidden facility. The asteroid cracked and split apart, spilling debris and atmosphere into space. Within moments, nothing remained but glowing fragments drifting in the void. Marcus activated his communication system again, broadcasting on all frequencies throughout the system. "This is Admiral Torres. The Vorthak base in the Kepler-7 system has been destroyed. All raiders and support facilities have been eliminated. Any Vorthak forces listening to this message should understand. You killed civilians. There will be consequences." The message was simple and direct. No demands for surrender, no offers of negotiation, just a promise that human retribution would be swift and complete. News of the attack spread quickly through Vorthak space. On the bridge of the raider ship Blood Talon, Captain Krex read the intelligence reports with growing unease. The mammals had actually mounted a military operation against them. 12 ships destroyed, reported his tactical officer. "The entire Kepler-7 facility is gone." Krex dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "One lucky attack. The humans lack the spine for a real war. They will make their gesture and then return to their diplomatic protests." But even as he spoke, Krex felt doubt gnawing at him. The human attack had been brutally efficient, showing none of the restraint his species expected from the soft mammals. Still, surely they would not continue this aggressive campaign for long. He was wrong. 3 days later, the human fleet struck again. This time they hit 2 Vorthak bases simultaneously, using coordinated attacks that destroyed over 30 raider ships. Again came the same cold message. You killed civilians. There will be consequences. Within a week, 5 more bases had been eliminated. The humans were not mounting random strikes or symbolic attacks. They were systematically dismantling the entire Vorthak raider network with methodical precision. Commander Elena Vasquez worked around the clock in her intelligence center, analyzing, captured data, and tracking down every Vorthak facility in the Outer Rim. Her team used techniques that baffled alien observers: behavioral analysis, economic modeling, and quantum signature tracking that allowed them to predict where raiders would strike next. The Vorthak follow predictable patterns, Elena explained to Admiral Torres during one of their daily briefings. Their raids are based on established trade routes and shipping schedules. We can use their own success against them. She brought up a holographic map showing Vorthak territory with red markers indicating known bases and green markers showing human fleet positions. By analyzing their attack patterns over the past 2 years, we've identified 17 major supply bases and 43 smaller outposts. We know where they refuel, where they repair their ships, and where they store stolen cargo. Marcus studied the tactical situation with growing satisfaction. How long to eliminate all identified targets? At current pace, approximately 6 weeks, sir. But there's something else. Elena's expression grew serious. Intelligence reports indicate the Vorthak leadership is finally taking us seriously. The Brood Council has issued orders for all raiders to avoid human vessels entirely. Too late for that, Marcus replied coldly. They had 2 years to make that decision while they were murdering our people. The next Vorthak base fell 3 days later, then 2 more the following week. Each attack followed the same pattern. The human fleet would appear without warning, offer 60 seconds for surrender, then eliminate everything that moved. No negotiations, no mercy, no second chances. On the raider ship Bone Crusher, Captain Fex received an urgent communication from Vorthak High Command. The message was clear. All raider operations against human vessels were to cease immediately. Raiders were ordered to retreat to the inner systems and await further instructions. Vex snarled in frustration. His pack had been planning a major strike against a human colony convoy, but now those orders were canceled because some mammals had gotten lucky with a few surprise attacks. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from Brood Leader Morg himself. The screen filled with the imposing image of the Vorthak Supreme Commander, his scaled features twisted with barely controlled rage. All raid leaders, listen carefully, Morg growled. The human military response has exceeded our predictions. 17 of our bases have been destroyed in the past month. Over 200 raider ships have been eliminated. Vex felt his blood run cold. 200 ships? That was nearly half their entire raider fleet. All raids against human targets are suspended indefinitely, Morg continued. Raiders are to withdraw to the core systems immediately. We will reassess the situation once these mammals exhaust themselves with their futile campaign. The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at the blank screen. He had never heard fear in a Brood leader's voice before, but it had been there in Morg's words. The humans were not behaving as expected. Most species, when faced with piracy, would increase their defenses or negotiate for safe passage. They might launch a few retaliatory strikes, then seek a diplomatic solution. The humans were doing none of these things. Instead, they were systematically destroying every Vorthak military installation they could find with the ruthless efficiency of professional exterminators. They were not seeking territory or resources or political advantage. They were seeking revenge. Admiral Torres received the intelligence reports about Vorthak withdrawal with grim satisfaction. The raiders were finally realizing that their prey had teeth. But this was only the beginning of human retribution. Elena, what's the status on locating their primary bases? We've identified 3 major facilities in the Vorthak inner system, sir. These are heavily defended installations with significant military assets. Taking them will require our full fleet strength. Marcus nodded slowly. The Vorthak leadership thought they could order their raiders to stop attacking humans, and the problem would simply go away. They were about to learn that humanity's memory was very long indeed. Set course for Vorthak space, he ordered. It's time to visit their home systems and deliver our message in person. The human defense fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthak home system, like a wave of controlled fury. 120 warships arranged themselves in perfect battle formation, their weapons powered and shields at maximum strength. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the tactical display that showed the entire Vorthak defense network. 3 heavily armed orbital platforms surrounded the main planet, supported by over 200 military vessels of various sizes. Impressive, commented Commander Elena Vasquez from her position at the intelligence station. They've gathered everything they have left to defend their homeworld. Not everything, Marcus replied, studying the formation. Where are their raider fleets? Elena consulted her data. Intelligence suggests most surviving raiders are hiding in deep space or neutral territory. The Vorthak leadership called them back to avoid further losses. Marcus nodded grimly. The Vorthak had finally realized that their hit-and-run tactics were useless against humanity's systematic campaign of destruction. After losing over half their raider fleet in 6 weeks, they were trying to preserve what was left. Open a channel to all ships, Marcus ordered. And make sure it's broadcast on every Vorthak frequency. The communication system activated, sending his words across the entire star system. On the planet below, billions of Vorthak civilians would hear what he had to say. More importantly, their leaders would hear it. This is Admiral Marcus Torres of the Human Defense Fleet. Over the past 2 years, Vorthak raiders have murdered more than 12,000 human civilians. They have attacked medical ships, refugee transports, and aid convoys. They have shown no mercy to our people. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in across the system. Today we are here to collect payment for those crimes. The Vorthak hegemony will surrender unconditionally, or we will dismantle your military capacity piece by piece. The response came within minutes. A massive Vorthak battleship, twice the size of the Retribution, moved forward from the defensive formation. Its weapon systems powered up as it approached the human fleet. This is Brood Leader Morg of the Vorthak hegemony, came the harsh voice over the communication system. You mammals dare to threaten our homeworld. We are a warrior species with 1,000 years of military tradition. Your soft hearts and weak resolve are no match for Vorthak steel. Marcus exchanged glances with his senior officers. Even now, facing the full might of the human defense fleet, the Vorthak still believed humans were too weak to fight effectively. Brood Leader Morg? Marcus replied calmly. You have 60 seconds to stand down and surrender. After that, we will begin removing your military assets from this system. Morg's laughter echoed across all frequencies. 60 seconds? You think we fear your idle threats? Attack us if you dare, mammals. We will show you what real warriors can do. Marcus checked the chronometer on his display. 60 seconds passed in silence as the 2 fleets faced each other across the void. Then he gave the order that would change galactic history. All ships engage. The battle for Vorthak Prime began with a thunderous exchange of energy beams and missile barrages. The Vorthak defenders fought with desperate courage, throwing everything they had at the human fleet. Their orbital platforms launched waves of fighters while their capital ships closed to point-blank range. But courage was not enough to overcome superior tactics and firepower. The human fleet moved with precision that amazed even veteran Vorthak commanders. Ships coordinated their attacks with perfect timing, covering each other's flanks while systematically destroying enemy formations. Within 2 hours, the first orbital platform exploded in a brilliant fireball. The second fell 30 minutes later, its massive structure breaking apart under concentrated bombardment from a dozen human cruisers. Brood Leader Morg watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed. These were not the weak mammals his raiders had been attacking. These were professional military forces fighting with cold efficiency and deadly skill. All ships withdraw to the inner defense perimeter, Morg ordered, but it was too late. Human squadrons had already penetrated his formation, cutting off retreat routes and isolating Vorthak ships for individual destruction. The battle raged for 6 hours before the last Vorthak warship fell silent. The orbital platforms were gone, reduced to glowing debris. The planet's defense fleet had been completely eliminated. Only civilian vessels remained, broadcasting desperate surrender signals. Admiral Torres opened communication channels to the planet below. Brood Leader Morg, this is your final warning. Surrender unconditionally, or we will begin targeting your military installations on the surface. The reply came in a broken voice that bore little resemblance to the arrogant warrior who had challenged them hours earlier. We surrender. The Vorthak hegemony surrenders unconditionally to human forces. But Marcus was not finished. The Galactic Council had been sending increasingly urgent messages demanding that both sides stand down and negotiate. It was time to send a message that would be heard throughout the galaxy. This is Admiral Torres addressing the Galactic Council and all member species, he broadcast on the diplomatic frequency. For 2 years the Council watched while Vorthak raiders murdered human civilians. We requested intervention and were told to file formal complaints. We asked for justice and were offered mediation talks. Marcus looked around his bridge at officers who had lost friends and family to pirate attacks. The human defense fleet does not negotiate with murderers. We do not seek mediation with those who target civilians. We have compiled evidence of 847 attacks on human vessels, resulting in over 12,000 deaths. Every single attack will be answered. He gestured to his tactical officer, who began broadcasting recordings from the battle, images of destroyed Vorthak warships exploding orbital platforms, and surrendering enemy forces filled communication channels across the galaxy. Let this be a lesson to any species that considers humanity weak because we prefer peace. We do not start wars, but we will finish them. Every human civilian death will be avenged. Every attack on our people will have consequences. The Altarian ambassador's face appeared on Marcus's personal communication screen, his blue features twisted with diplomatic concern. Admiral Torres, the Council demands that you cease military operations immediately. This level of retaliation is completely unprecedented in galactic politics. Marcus looked at the ambassador with cold eyes. Ambassador, your people have lived in peace for centuries because others fight to protect it. You mistake our restraint for weakness and our mercy for inability to wage war. He activated a holographic display showing the wreckage of Vorthak, Prime's defense fleet. This is what happens when someone threatens human lives. Share that information with anyone who might be considering similar actions. The ambassador's expression grew troubled. Admiral, you cannot simply destroy an entire species' military capacity. There are protocols, negotiations, treaties. The protocols failed, Marcus cut him off. The negotiations were ignored. The treaties were broken by Vorthak raiders who murdered our civilians. Now there will be justice. Over the following days, the surrender negotiations proceeded quickly. The Vorthak had no choice but to accept every human demand: complete disarmament, war crimes trials for all raider commanders, and reparations to be paid over the next century. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity dictated terms to a species that had terrorized space lanes for generations. Other races began reassessing their assumptions about human nature and military capability. In the diplomatic quarters of a dozen different species, intelligence reports were being written that would reshape galactic politics. The consensus was becoming clear: humans were not weak. They were simply selective about when and how they used their strength. The Centaurian military attaché's report to his government became required reading in military academies across known space. We observed the humans' response to sustained attacks on their civilian population. Their retaliation was swift, methodical, and completely devastating. They showed no interest in negotiation until their enemy was completely defeated. But perhaps the most important observation came from the Altarian ambassador himself. In a classified report to his home government, "We have fundamentally misunderstood human nature. We assumed their preference for peace indicated an inability to wage war effectively. We were catastrophically wrong. The humans do not fight as we do. They fight with the calculated determination of a species that considers every individual life to have infinite value." As the Retribution prepared to depart Vorthak Prime, Admiral Torres stood once more on his bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been an entire species' military might. His communication officer approached with a message from Fleet Command. "Sir, we're receiving reports that piracy against human vessels has dropped to nearly zero across all sectors. Apparently, word is spreading quickly through the underworld. Marcus nodded with grim satisfaction. The lesson was being learned. Don't ambush human ships. Don't attack human civilians. Don't mistake humanity's love of peace for an inability to wage war. The galaxy was beginning to understand that there was a difference between being peaceful and being weak. 6 months after the ambush of the Harmony's Dream, Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the Memorial Hall of the Human Defense Fleet Academy. The walls were covered with names of those who had died in service to humanity, and today 12 new names would be added to that sacred list. Captain Sarah Chen, Marcus read from the memorial plaque, died defending her crew and cargo of medical supplies destined for frontier colonies. She served with honor, courage, and compassion until her final moment. The ceremony was attended by representatives from across human space, colony governors, fleet commanders, diplomatic officials, and thousands of family members who had lost loved ones to Vorthak raiders over the past 2 years. But there were also observers from other species, including several members of the Galactic Council. They had come to witness humanity's way of honoring its dead, and perhaps to better understand the people they had so badly misjudged. Marcus continued reading the names of the Harmony's Dream crew, speaking briefly about each person's life and service. Dr. Marcus Webb, who had volunteered for frontier medical missions for 15 years. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had planned to study astronomy after completing her merchant marine service. Each name represented not just a life lost, but a family forever changed by pirate brutality. When the ceremony concluded, Marcus found himself approached by Ambassador Thek of the Altarian Council. The blue-skinned diplomat looked troubled as he gestured toward the memorial wall. Admiral Torres, I have been studying your response to the Vorthak attacks, Thek said carefully. Your people's reaction was unexpected. In what way? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Most species would have sought compensation or increased defensive measures. Some might have launched a limited retaliation to send a message. But you... Thek paused, searching for words. You completely destroyed their ability to wage war. It was thorough beyond any precedent. In galactic history, Marcus looked at the memorial wall where Captain Chen's name now joined thousands of others who had died protecting human interests across the galaxy. Ambassador, let me explain something about human nature that your people seem to misunderstand. We don't value peace because we're weak. We value it because we know the true cost of war. He gestured to the names surrounding them. Every person on this wall had family, friends, dreams for the future. When the Vorthak killed Captain Chen and her crew, they didn't just murder 12 individuals. They destroyed the hopes and plans of hundreds of people who loved them. Thek listened intently, his expression growing more thoughtful. But surely there could have been a diplomatic solution, some form of negotiation or mediation. Marcus's voice grew cold. The Vorthak had 2 years to stop attacking our civilians. The Council had 2 years to address their piracy. Instead, we were told to file complaints and avoid their territory. How many more of our people should have died while we waited for diplomacy to work? The ambassador had no answer for that question. In the months since the Vorthak War, similar conversations were taking place throughout the galaxy. Military commanders, diplomats, and intelligence officials were all trying to understand how they had so completely misjudged humanity's capabilities. On the trading station of Kepler 7, the same system where the Harmony's Dream had been attacked, Captain Rex Thornton was loading medical supplies onto his cargo ship Peaceful Horizon. His vessel bore the same civilian markings that had failed to protect Captain Chen's crew. But the space lanes were different now. Where once merchant captains had traveled in fear, checking their sensors constantly for signs of raiders, now they moved with confidence. Pirate attacks on human vessels had virtually disappeared. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a priority message from an approaching vessel. Rex tensed, old habits dying hard. Raider ship? Negative, sir. It's a Zolonian merchant vessel requesting emergency assistance. They report engine failure and life support problems. Rex immediately changed course to help the stranded ship, as any decent captain would do. But as his crew worked to repair the alien vessel, he noticed something interesting. The Zolonian captain kept thanking him repeatedly, seeming surprised that humans would stop to help strangers. Captain Thornton, the alien finally said, forgive my curiosity, but your people's reputation has changed significantly in recent months. Many species now view humans as formidable warriors. Rex smiled as he thought about Admiral Torres and the fleet that had avenged Captain Chen. We're the same people we always were. We help those in need. We protect the innocent and we remember our friends. He looked out at the stars where the Harmony's dream had made her final voyage. But we also remember our enemies. That's something the galaxy is still learning about us. The lesson was indeed spreading across known space. In the criminal underworld of a dozen different species, the word had gone out: avoid human ships at all costs. The mammals might look soft, but their response to aggression was swift and devastating. On the smuggler's den of Tortuga Station, a gathering of various pirates and raiders discussed the new reality. A Krellian arms dealer named Vask addressed the group. The humans have changed the rules, Vask growled. Before, if you attacked a ship, the worst you could expect was increased patrols or maybe a few retaliatory strikes. The humans don't work that way. A Vorthak survivor from the Battle of Vorthak Prime spoke up, his voice hollow with remembered fear. They hunted us systematically. Every base, every ship, every installation. They didn't want territory or resources. They wanted revenge. How many Vorthak military vessels are left operational? Asked a Centaurian pirate. Fewer than 20, the Vorthak replied. The rest are scrap metal floating in space. The hegemony went from controlling 3 star systems to begging the Council for refugee status. The gathering fell silent as the implications sank in. An entire species' military might had been erased in less than 2 months by a race that most of the galaxy had considered peaceful and weak. Back on Terra Station, Admiral Torres received a report that brought a grim smile to his face. Intelligence indicated that several pirate organizations had issued standing orders to their crews. Do not attack vessels flying human flags under any circumstances. Admiral, Commander Elena Vasquez entered his office with the latest summary reports. Attacks on human civilian vessels are down 98% across all sectors. Most of the remaining incidents appear to be cases of mistaken identity. And attacks on other species' vessels? Also decreasing, sir. It seems our demonstration with the Vorthak has had a broader deterrent effect. Pirates are being more cautious about targeting anyone in case they accidentally hit a human ship. Marcus nodded with satisfaction. The Harmony's dream and her crew had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had led to a safer galaxy for all peaceful travelers. There was a soft chime from his communication console. Marcus activated the display to find a message from the Altarian Council, marked with the highest diplomatic priority. Admiral Torres, Ambassador Thek's image appeared on the screen. The Council has voted to establish new protocols for addressing piracy and attacks on civilian vessels. We would like to invite human representatives to help draft these new policies. Marcus almost smiled at the irony. Now that humanity had demonstrated its willingness and ability to solve the piracy problem permanently, the Council wanted human input on how to handle such situations in the future. Tell the ambassador that humanity will be happy to participate, Marcus replied to his aide, but make sure they understand our position clearly. The best way to handle piracy is to make it unprofitable and dangerous for the pirates. As the months passed, the story of the Harmony's dream and humanity's response became part of galactic folklore. In trading posts and spaceports throughout known space, the tale was told and retold, growing in the telling but never losing its essential truth. The galaxy had learned a fundamental lesson about human nature. Humans preferred peace, but they were not pacifists. They valued life, but they would take it when necessary. They sought diplomatic solutions, but they would not allow diplomacy to be used as an excuse for inaction while their people died. Most importantly, the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their unwavering principle that every life mattered. They would move heaven and stars to protect their own, and their memory was very long indeed. In the quiet memorial hall of the Fleet Academy, Captain Sarah Chen's name joined the ranks of those who had served and died for humanity. But her legacy lived on in the safer space lanes and the pirates who now whispered warnings to each other in the darkness between stars. Don't ambush a human ship. They remember everything and they answer with fury. The lesson had been learned. The galaxy would not forget.